I thought I'd do a bit of a sort of top 10. In fact, it's going to transpire for what I've got into a top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, a top 12, which isn't normal. It's normally a top 5 or a top 10, but sod it, I'm going to do a top 12. There seems to be quite a, I suppose, focus really on joysticks at the moment. Joysticks seem to be the in thing as regards to control methods. Whether or not that is to do with the authenticity of using a joystick in the arcade, and that's what they have in the arcade, and we all, a lot of us aspire to having that authenticity and having something like an arcade in our own home. I don't know. But in some ways, you know, because we are into retro stuff, and to me retro is actually joypads. That's where it started. You know, going back 20 odd years ago when I first got into console gaming, you know, Mega Drive onwards, you didn't get joysticks. You didn't even think about getting a joystick. You used a joypad. The joypad was the preferred method of control, you know. And predominantly everything was joypad. So I thought I'd do a bit of a sort of countdown really, based on the joypads that I've got for the game consoles that I've got. This isn't all of them as regards to all the consoles. I mean, this is covering most of my console collection, but not everything. And these joypads are the original joypads that came with the console. So these aren't the copied versions. You know, you could end up going into a top 50, I suppose, if you considered all of the not copies, I wouldn't say copies, but all the alternatives you could get for the consoles at the time. These are all the original ones that came with the consoles. So I thought I'd try and do a bit of a sort of countdown of the various joypads I've got. There's a bit of a reason for me doing this. I'll perhaps come to this when I actually come to my top 1 slot. It's going to be quite hard actually, and this is going to be absolutely subjective, and I think in part a lot of this is going to be to do with the actual joypad for the console specifically that it was for, rather than trying to compare, even though I will do that once I get further up the pecking order to do with the joypads. But I think these are more to do judging them against the actual console that they were bought out for, and the type of games that are available on that specific console, because that in my opinion gives a better objective view really on the joypad for the specific console, and that may become a bit clearer as I go through explaining them. So out of the 12, well, which one? I mean, I'm going to do this live. I haven't really thought about this, so I may get some of my numberings incorrect. But we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. Okay, bottom of the pile. Really, what is the worst pad out of all this that I've got for the console? That's pretty difficult. I've got to be totally honest. I know which my best one is, but I don't want to jump to that because that will spoil the fun of the video, surely. I mean, it is difficult. I think this is difficult purely from the aspect that like I said, if you look at the pad for the console, none of these pads are bad. They're all good pads for the consoles that they were made for. If you start comparing pad against pad, then I think you're absolutely, you know, you will find that you'll have a natural pecking order. But I don't really want to do that because that's not fair. You're not comparing like for like, really. What I'll do is I'll probably look at all the pads as regards to some of their features of each of the pad, and rather than doing a top 12, I have got the favourite one, without a shadow of a doubt, and I'll explain why. But instead of doing this sort of countdown, which I don't think I can really do, because I don't think it would be fair, but let's pick the first joypad. First joypad is Nintendo GameCube. That's it there. Now, in its own right, for the games that have come out for the Nintendo 60, sorry, for the GameCube, not Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64 is the one console I haven't got representation for here. I have got one, but it's in the garage, along with some other stuff that I've got. I can't be asked to get out. But yeah, the GameCube joypad. Quite a weird one, really. This was, as regards they tried to combine a fair few elements into the one joypad, just unravel it, and I mean, all your guys would know this, I'm sure, but it was a bit of a it was sort of a bit of a Frankenstein's monster, really. Blow the dust off it. Whereas you got your D-pad, which isn't a particularly great D-pad. It really isn't. I don't like that D-pad at all. You've got an analog stick there, and you've got an analog stick there, so you've got two analog sticks on it. You've got 4 buttons around here. You've got a Z button on the top, which I suspect would have been similar to like a trigger button, which was actually on the N64 joypad, and you got shoulder buttons as well. So you got a massive amount of button configurations on this, and actually for the games that were available for the N64, this was a fairly decent pad. If I'm being totally honest, there's not actually a massive library of great, in my opinion, great GameCube games out there. I've never really played the console that much, and I've only got a handful of games for it. Out of all the consoles I've got, it's probably the one that's the least represented with games. Yeah, things like Mario, in Mario 64, no, not Mario 64, Mario, whatever the Mario game was called. Christ, I can't remember now, but whatever the Mario game was called. Oh no, it wasn't this. No, sorry. It wasn't. Oh, this is how forgettable this console is to me. It wasn't the Mario game, it was Luigi's Mansion. And this played really well with that game, and those types of games, it was a good joypad, but it's a bit forgettable, I think, like the console. So that's a bit about the GameCube one. We'll throw that in a bin. Right, next one. I don't want to take this out of the bag because this is part of my my brand new setup I've got. I can't be bothered to get my TurboGrafx 16 pad out, but we all know what these pads look like. This is the PC Engine Core Graphics pad. It's the same as the white PC Engine pad, just different colour. So you've got a D-pad on there, and you've got 2 buttons, and you've actually got built-in turbo options and selector and run on there. For the PC Engine games, again, this was a great pad. You know, really great pad. Not particularly, in my eyes, it wasn't particularly ergonomic as a pad. It plays well. It plays well, certainly for the shooters. I mean, you don't want anything complicated for shooters. It just needs to do what you need it to do, sort of thing. But unfortunately, when they actually brought out a game like Street Fighter for the PC Engine that needed, actually needed 6 buttons, you couldn't use a pad like this. So that was a bit of a negative point really on the pad, but there was only that game that was available on the PC Engine that actually needed more buttons. I don't know if there's any games there that need 3. I can't think off the top of my head, I don't think there is, but yeah, nice pad, but certainly not the best. Now this is a bit of a weird pad, but the Sega Saturn, there you go, see that better. The Sega Saturn, I forgot what this pad's called now. Is it the 360 pad, I think it was called? This was a pad that was specifically designed for Knights because of the analog control on it, which worked really well actually. D-pad on it is taken straight from the normal Saturn pad, and you got 6 buttons on it, the same as a normal Saturn pad, I think, yeah. And you got your start button. You can actually swap there between analog and digital, and you've got your shoulder buttons on the back. very nice pad actually. Actually, a real nice pad, even as a replacement or a substitute for the normal Sega Saturn pad, which is a great pad in my opinion. You got 6 buttons, so all the fighting games were well catered for, and the actual D-pad itself is pretty legendary, to be honest, regarding the fighter fans and so forth. It's a great D-pad, certainly one of the best D-pads you can get. But as a as a bit of a weird controller, it looks quite weird because of the size of it, but it actually fits really, really nicely into your hand. It's a nice pad. I really do like that pad. I suppose we jump from that to the actual normal Sega Saturn pad. This is off a Japanese Saturn, original launch version of the Sega Saturn. So you got your nice micro switched shoulder buttons. D-pad, really nice as well. The fact that your sort of thumb sort of sits into it. It's got like a recess on it. You can see that from there. But it's a nice, big, solid. Feels really, really nice. And you got your 6 buttons again for all your fighters, for whatever button combination you'd want. That will suffice. Real nice pad. This is certainly going to be. This has got to be a top 3 pad without a doubt. Oh. Smash me pads up. Dreamcast pad. Quite a big pad. Again, fits quite nicely actually. This is one of my spare butchered pads. It's missing a shoulder button because I've used it on another one that I've got. But this pad was quite revolutionary in some ways at the time. I'll explain why in a second. But you've got your shoulder pads. Sorry, your shoulder buttons. One of them's missing on this one, but you got your 4 buttons across, copying a certain Super Nintendo type layout, I dare suggest. You got your D-pad, which it's not great if I'm being honest. It's not a great D-pad, and you got your analog pad, which works quite well. Good thing about this pad, or the sort of weird thing about this pad, was the fact it takes VMU, which is the Dreamcast sort of little gadget that does all the game saves, and you can also have, I think there's some mini games that are available on these. Just hook that into that, and these pads are quite prone to failing. I've got 2 or 3 that are a bit dodgy. I've got about 5 pads altogether. I've got 2 or 3 of them that are mullered, and they don't seem to take up to much abuse, which is a bit of a shame. Like I said, the D-pad isn't great. Shoulder buttons can start to fail. So not a great pad in my opinion. Certainly out of my top 5, I'd say. Sega Mega Drive pad. Now, a lot of people think this is actually one of the best pads available. I don't think it's the best pad available. It is a nice pad, and the D-pad's really nice. But unfortunately, you've only got 3 buttons on it. Now, again, for games like Street Fighter, and in fact, I think it was only games. I think it was probably only Street Fighter. Again, I haven't played much of a Mega Drive. Was anything else that used 6 buttons? Can't think. But it fits really well in the hand. It's quite a nice positive feel, but I don't think the D-pad is the best. If I'm being absolutely honest, I don't think it's the best. But it's good. It's a good pad. Certainly in the top 5. Possibly top 3. Don't know, but definitely a top 5 pad. Regarded by some as being the absolute daddy of fighter pads, certainly, is the Neo Geo CD pad. The great thing about this is that it has got the micro switched digital pad, which is really good for fighting games. But there is another pad that I've got that beats this, and it's not micro switched. Again, in my opinion, it's got 4 buttons, there. Again, blatant rip-off of the Super Nintendo pad. No shoulder buttons, but it wasn't needed because the Neo Geo would only use up to a maximum of 4 buttons for the games. So that's a good thing about Neo Geo, I think it was designed around 4 buttons. But a nice pad nevertheless. Now these are very similar, these two pads. This is the PlayStation 2 pad, so this is DualShock 2. And of course we've got the 6-axis pad for the PlayStation 3. Both virtually the same type of pads. Both of the dual analog, double shoulder buttons on the top, D-pad, which is absolute gash. It's one of the worst D-pads out. I can't understand why they never redesigned this D-pad, but it's just crap. And the 4-button layout, again, ripped off totally from the Super Nintendo, Super Famicom days. Now this is a good pad for anything that's analog based. It's not so great for anything that's a D-pad based. Again, I just don't know why they haven't changed the D-pad. It's just not that good, you know. But so between that and that, they're both the same effectively. One's for PlayStation, one's for PlayStation 2, but they're effectively the same feel of pad. Where would I rate those? Outside top 5, I'd say. Outside top 5. Xbox 360 pad. I love this pad. I think it's a great pad. The D-pad on it is in my opinion better than the PlayStation 3 D button, or the PlayStation 2 D-pad. Sorry. It's still not the best, but it is better. It is better in my opinion. You've got 2 analog dooblies, micro switched on them as well, same as the PlayStation ones. They're micro switched in the middle, so you've got another type of button that you can choose from. 2 shoulder buttons and the 2 trigger buttons at the top. And again, you've got the 4-button layout. All seem to be mimicking or copying the original Super Nintendo pad. Fits really well in your hand, I think this pad does. I think out of all the pads, I've spent a lot of time on this, certainly in recent years, because I prefer the PlayStation. Sorry, not prefer the Xbox, but I play the Xbox 360 more than I played the PlayStation 3. Yeah, great pad. Would it be in the top 5? Definitely. I think it would be in the top 5. Would it be in the top 3? Not sure. Definitely a top 5 though. I really do like this pad. Yeah, I do like that. And nice weight to it as well. It's nice. Now the behemoth that is the Xbox, the original Xbox pad. I mean, this thing is absolutely huge. It really is huge. Actually feels really nice as well. Again in the hand. Quite weird, really. You wouldn't think something that big would do, but I mean, he's absolutely. I mean, it really is massive. You know, why make a pad this big? But I tell you what, ergonomically, it feels really nice. You got your sort of shoulder buttons, you know, trigger buttons. You've got dual analog again, and again they're both micro switched. And you got your D-pad. D-pad on this isn't bad. Pretty good D-pad. Basically the same as what's on the 360 pad, to be honest. You've actually got 6 buttons on this, so you got your 4 main buttons and the top 2 buttons, so you can use 6 buttons if you wanted to. Not a bad pad actually, this one. I quite like this. I do quite like that pad. Top 5. I'm not sure I can fit this in the top 5, but possibly just outside the top 5. I've mentioned a few times about various pads copying a single pad, which is the Super Nintendo Super Famicom pad. This baby here. Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase. I think this is the best joypad that has ever been made. It gives me a hard on to play with this. I'd rather play this and play with other parts of my body, if I'm being honest now. That's been... Why am I talking about stuff like that? Change the subject, change the subject. This pad is... It's just absolutely awesome, it really is. It's such a great pad. I mean, you can see playing in the background here. This is Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the Super Nintendo. Sorry, Super Famicom playing. Now, and the Famicom I've got is the original Famicom that I bought all those years ago. 20 odd years ago. The console itself's got a real good suntan. It's been yellowed, it's been used, it's been abused. It is an awesome console. I absolutely love it. You guys, I think, know what I feel like about the Super Nintendo. And I don't think I'm being biased about saying how good this pad is. It's just awesome, and this one is the English version. It's not the Famicom pad. I had a Famicom pad, and I don't know where it's gone. I've lost it or whatever. And I've been using a Competition Pro pad recently. I actually went out and actually bought a copied Famicom pad from eBay. And it cost me about £3. That one there, that's based on and the colour buttons are based on the US version of the pad. And I thought, well, £3, I'll try it. It is absolute shit. Don't bother buying these copied pads, guys. If you've tried already, you'll know what I'm on about. If you thought, you know what, for £2 or I think this cost me £2.50 delivered. The reason why it's £2.50 is £2.50 because it is utter shite. Don't bother. It's crap. It's shit. It's unresponsive. It's just crap. So see ya. Now yesterday I was on eBay and I thought I've got to get a UK one because you got longer leads for the UK one, and I bought one. It cost me £9.99 including delivery, which is fairly expensive for this style of pad, or for a pad this old. I think that's fairly expensive, but it all seems to be priced around that sort of money. And I delivered today, so I've cleaned it all up. It looks virtually brand new now. And as soon as I plug this in, and the game that I rate as regards to testing a pad out is a fighting game, something like Street Fighter, because of the accuracy of the pad, or what you need for accuracy to pull off special moves and so forth, you immediately know whether or not a pad's good. And I've got to be honest, I didn't even have to plug it in. The D-pad on this is just it is sublime, it really is. Any of you guys out there got Super Nintendo, I mean, you'll know that it just feels great, it feels so natural, and I mean, the ergonomics of this pad are stunning. They really are. Everything is perfect on there in my opinion. Your shoulder buttons are perfectly placed, they feel nice and positive, and they're not actually micro switch, but they just feel great. The button position feels great and they're positive, and the D-pad is just absolutely awe-inspiring. It really is. And unless you've played a Super Nintendo pad, I don't think you can ever say that any other pad is any better. Now, this is subjective, and some of you guys may say that no, you're wrong, Sean, you're absolutely wrong. It's not the best pad. This is the best pad because of X, Y, Z. And it is subjective, but I just think that this pad is absolutely great. I mean, I plugged it straight in, went straight into Street Fighter, and I could just pull off all the special moves straight away. No problem whatsoever. I actually find it easier in some respect to play on a pad of this quality compared to a joystick. I just love it. It's just great. So, without a shadow of a doubt, this is my absolute #1 joypad of all time. It's awesome. And if I had the choice between playing with this against using a joystick, I've just recently bought a Super Nintendo joystick, it's a good joystick, I would pick this every single time. And if I could get this to work on every single console I had, which you can buy adapters and so forth to plug this into other consoles, but you can get possible issues with lag and so forth, but this is the best. This is an absolutely awesome pad, and the fact that so many manufacturers in some way, shape or form have tried to copy this, or they've based their pads on this, whether it's the shoulder buttons, you know, because this was quite revolutionary at the time, whether it's the button layout, or the style of D-pad. I think most manufacturers have tried to copy this in some way, shape or form, but you know what, they haven't been able to get anywhere near it. Even Nintendo themselves haven't got nowhere near this on subsequent console pads. So yeah, this gets my #1 spot for joypads. Give me some comments, guys, tell me what you think, and hope you enjoy the video. Speak to you again soon.